Welcome to Week 5 of the module Learning Through Two Languages, Fostering Additive Bilingualism. This week's topic is Communicative Competence. The guiding question is, how can I help bilingual students increase their communicative competence in a second language? Let's begin this week by imagining you are in a 5-star restaurant. Your server comes to the table. You look at her expectantly. She drops the menus on the table and says, "What do you have?" Now imagine you are at a fast food drive-thru, anxious to get home after a long day of work, and the person on the microphone says, "Good afternoon. I so appreciate your coming to our establishment this afternoon. Have you been given sufficient time to look over our extensive menu? Do you have any questions?" What would your reaction be? Everything that is spoken is influenced by the context of culture. Culture determines the particular language being spoken and what is appropriate speech in each specific setting, based on the relationships among the speakers and the hearers. To communicate effectively in any culture, then, speakers must demonstrate communicative competence. They must be able to adapt their speech to fit the context of the moment. Bilingual learners must learn not only the vocabulary and grammar of their new language, but also the particular ways to use the language that may or may not be the same as it is in their mother tongue. As you saw in the reading in Activity 1, and as shown in this visual, communicative competence can be described with 4 overlapping concepts. These concepts will help us talk about communicative competence in a way that supports this week's goal: to deepen your understanding of the many aspects of language proficiency beyond vocabulary and grammar. The understandings are framed by the question, which words do I use in this situation with this person to convey this idea appropriately so that my meaning will be understood in the way I intended? Linguistic competence can be thought of as grammatical accuracy. This is what people typically think of as language proficiency, that is, pronunciation, morphology or units of meaning, parts of speech, tenses, etc. Linguistic competence involves the accurate use of grammar, syntax, and vocabulary of a language. The key question in relation to linguistic competence is, what words do I use, and how do I put them into phrases and sentences? Socio-linguistic competence is knowing how to use and respond to language appropriately within the context of the situation. The key questions are, how can I express a specific attitude such as courtesy, authority, friendliness, respect when I need to? How do I know what attitude the speaker is expressing? In other words, individuals ask themselves, which words and phrases fit this setting and this topic? In the restaurant examples, the speakers were linguistically competent, but lacked proficiency with sociolinguistics for the setting. Discourse competence is knowing how to link words, phrases, and sentences together in a logical manner to keep written and oral communications flowing in conversations, speeches, email messages, newspaper articles, etc. Since language is what we use to interact socially, bilinguals need to learn how language changes based on the function of the communication. For instance, a research paper serves a different function from a letter to a close friend. Because of the differences in their functions, the words and the ways of using them differ as well. This chart provides a brief overview of some of the social functions of language. In the module, you will see a download of academic language functions. The lists show just how complex the task of becoming communicatively competent is. For each language function, the way you use language will change depending on who you are talking to, the level of formality of the situation, and what you want to accomplish. For example, a greeting is a social language function. In the hallway at school, you might hear greetings as varied as, "Good morning, how are you doing today?" or "Hi there, how goes it?" or "Yo, what's up?" or a mere nod of the head. As another example, think of how you would ask your sibling to pick up something you dropped, or your mother, or your grandmother, or a total stranger, or someone you were wanting to impress. would the words and tone of voice you use be identical or vary? Strategic competence refers to how speakers recognize and repair communication breakdowns, how to work around gaps in one's knowledge of the language, and how to learn more about the language in the context. In other words, how do I know I've misunderstood, or when someone has misunderstood me? What do I say then? How can I express my ideas if I don't know the name of something or the right verb to use? The focus of strategic competence is effectively getting your message across, or accurately interpreting what others are saying. This is an area where teachers can make a difference for bilingual learners, using multiple ways to get across a message with both your words and your body language, so students can use multiple strategies to make sense of what you're saying. Strategic competence also includes being able to convey and interpret meaning through facial expressions, gestures, and tone of voice. Communicative competence is embedded in culture, which is especially important to keep in mind with bilingual learners. Cultural competence reflects understanding the social structure, the values and beliefs of people, and the way things are assumed to be done. It means knowing and using the mostly unwritten rules for interaction in various communication situations. An example of the challenge of cultural competence is the difficulty many English speakers have when they are learning Spanish or French. These are just two of many languages that have a distinct familiar and formal forms for the singular pronoun you, tú and usted in Spanish, or tú and vous in French. Knowing how to correctly use these forms is much more than conjugation. It is knowing when and with whom to apply which term, and how to manipulate them to show respect or disdain or ignorance. This module has emphasized the importance of accessing what it is in students' conceptual reservoir to help them build their second language proficiency. In this example, the words all represent a common idea, that of friendship. With practice, students can learn the new label for the concept and be able to talk about it in the new language. However, the parameters of friendship vary significantly across cultural boundaries, including gender, age, language, race, ethnicity, and religion. In order to be able to interact appropriately, the cultural dimensions of friendship need to be learned. This includes understanding who can be friends, what friends do together, and how friends communicate, all of which may vary across cultures. Learning to understand the nuances of ideas in different cultures is part of the enrichment of bilingualism.